Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukutali.
And a wonderful morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo and broadcasting on TV1. This morning we are going to be asking a question that is on many people's minds, and that is the way forward for Sri Lanka, economically speaking. To help us understand some of aspects of that process is a very special guest today, Mr. Angelo Patrick. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
And how are you?
Excellent.
Thank you very much for being here. This whole process of economic, better economic times, since independence, we can trace it back to when? To the nationalization process?
Yeah, to the 50s.
In the 50s. Mm. Was that, in retrospect, but then retrospect is a wonderful thing, in retrospect, was that a good thing, do you think?
Yeah, going back to 1950 that you talked about,
yeah,
we had the era of SWR Bandanaka when he came to power. And he ushered in the socialist era, which was really a centrally controlled economy. And nationalization was a theme. So they nationalized the banks, the insurance companies, the
anything that
bus companies, everything was nationalized. And the theme was the government should run businesses. And after having nationalized, they even started their own businesses, like the state paper corporation, state engineering corporation, Parent and Chemical Corporation. All they were business runs. The objective they had was more towards the politicization of the entire economy, because businesses is a political power base, and politicians can manipulate the employees of the organization for their objectives. But if you look at the running of the business as such, the government's principal responsibility is defense and social responsibility.
Defense and social responsibility.
But if you look at the business objective, it's profit motive. So how do you reconcile a profit motive with social responsibility? So it's a conflict. So therefore, running a business by the government is unproductive, will not yield the results it is. So having gone through that process of nationalization in that era, the baton passed on to Mrs. Bandanaka.
But she didn't know any better anyway.
Well, she continued. Yeah. She continued the process, and she continued up to the point of nationalization of the tea companies. All the tea companies were, at the time, they were called sterling companies in that era, all British-owned companies, and they were nationalized. Of course, restriction on housing, restriction on the nationalization of schools. So that was the process we had, and the country became a fairly closed economy by the 70s. Then came the next era, which was the J.R. Jawaharlal regime, which proposed the open economic system and the privatization era.
Again, in retrospect, we could say that it was a jolly good thing JRJ did that.
Yes,
because the economic fortunes changed.
It's a very good thing they did, and by the time the privatization process really got underway, it was around 1990s. Right. So what happened was, in privatization, there are several methods of privatization.
Yeah. The
most common method is what they call deregulation. So what the government did was, they deregulated the industry first. A classic example is the bus companies.
Yeah.
They never sold CTB, but they allowed other bus companies to come side by side in competition with the CTB.
Right. In competition with the state.
CTBs. And they allowed more banks to come up in competition with the Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank. They allowed more finance companies to come up. They deregulated the insurance industries. So that was one form of a very, very effective
So all
form.
these sort of state businesses and so on, ventures, became political tools. They became a political...
Well, they were a political power base because the voter base was there, and they could be easily manipulated because of the authority the government had over them in employment.
Yeah, but is that... But we live in changing times. You know, the world is evolved, and we don't have these Victorian sweatshops anymore, and so on and so forth, right? So now everyone's... We like to think everyone is equal, and opportunity is equal, and so on. So, is there room now for government to be in business?
I really wouldn't think so. I really wouldn't think so, because business has a profit motive, profit objective.
Yeah. What does politics have?
Politics they have a social responsibility as a people, provide defense, social security, and social responsibility.
But nowadays we have politicians who are business people, and business people who are politicians.
Well, that's where the conflict arises.
That's right. And then you have safes full of cash. But that's another story for another program. But you know, 150 years later, I'm talking about the tea industry now.
Yeah, before you know the tea industry, now, as I said about the deregulation that came about, and then the government also set about selling some of the government-owned enterprises,
right?
Which now, for instance, the NDB, DFC is the bank, they were sold.
Right.
The government still has some percentage of holdings, but through the sale of those companies, they not only...
Were they sold properly, do you think?
They were sold. They were sold very well.
They were not sold to their cronies?
No. And they are now listed in the stock exchange. And so anybody can buy shares in that.
Right.
Now, as a result of the sale of NDB and DFCC and some of the other gas companies and things like that, they not only effectively introduced a private sector oriented management, which was very effective. They also raised revenue for the government coffers. Now, I remember the time they sold the DFCZ and NDB and some of the other companies, they reduced the budget deficit from 10% to 7%. So, very often the sale of assets on privatization is called the sale of family silver by politicians as a buzzword.
Yeah.
But are they really, some of the companies which are now left behind in the government hands, which are business companies, are they really family silver?
Is it though?
I don't think so. No, take Sri Lankan Airlines.
Yeah.
Do you call it a family silver?
I'm trying to figure out the opposite of family silver, because this foray into airlines is absolutely criminal in terms of the people and in terms of our money. And we hope to bring you a very special report on the affairs of Sri Lankan Airlines soon. But you know, from time immemorial, the national airline has been a drain on the treasury.
On the government coffers, yes.
I think there was a period, a couple of periods when this wasn't so. But everyone's forgetting about the capital cost, you know. You wipe out the capital cost and it all looks very rosy. But that capital cost was also met by the people of this country. You have to bear that in mind. And why on earth settlements in terms of the Sri Lankan Airlines compensation claims are being paid to a blind orphan trust. An orphan trust is beyond me for the moment. But we're getting to the bottom of that. And we will share that information with you. There you are.
So, going on with the process of privatization, or liberalization we'll call it. Privatization became a dirty word at one stage. The third methodology used, besides deregulation and sale, was a joint venture partnership, a public-private sector partnership between the government.
Something like
the Hambantota Port, or is a PPP, participation by the government of Sri Lanka and a company from China. The company can be from anywhere, whether it's a local company or a foreign company, as long as there is some private sector.
As a citizen of Sri Lanka, did you feel that perhaps that component, the company you said could be from anywhere? In this case it's from China. Do you feel as a citizen of Sri Lanka that the government should have persuaded some local companies to take a stake?
Well, the amount involved would have been possibly a little bit beyond the scope of the local company.
But if you look at the billion, 1.1, I think 1.2 billion, over 99 years, multiply that by 154, divide that all by the number of months, and you'll get a figure of around 5 million rupees a day. Peanuts for big companies.
Right. When you're looking at this liberalization or privatization or joint PPP, you not only look at it from a monetary point of view,
right,
also from the point of view of the expertise available, whether you can run that project by yourself. Is there sufficient expertise available in the local companies here to run a port? So not only the money required, also you need the management expertise in that. Money may be found, but management expertise can't be found that easily.
Yeah. But Colombo Port is doing all right.
Yeah, that's run by the state.
Part of it.
Part of it, yes.
Yeah.
The other area that we seem to be suffering from the liberalization process is that controls. There seem to be a certain amount of controls on the private sector,
right,
which is an impediment to a liberalized form of operation. Take, for instance, as the tea industry.
Yeah.
The tea industry has a certain amount of controls placed on it, which inhibits growth by the state.
Right.
By the state. For instance, the tea industry is not allowed to import teas of other origin into the country, orthodox tea into the country. Now, if you look at, is that the correct policy? If you look at our industry statistics, for the past 10 years, our production and exports have been just static, 300 million or lower per year.
And is that acceptable?
When you look at the global demand, which is going up and up and up, the gap between our production and the global demand widens. So who is taking the gap? Obviously, it has to be Kenya, India, Vietnam. So, when you have a situation like that, can it become a major player in the global tea industry when the production is static and the global demand is increasing? Could you become a major player? Right. So what do you do? Let me not get into the production problems now. If you are unable to produce, what do? Import. If you can't produce something, you import it and convert it into another form and re-export it. So, as a result of this restricted policy placed on the industry of importing teas of other origin in the country, we are losing our market share in the global market. Secondly, the global taste buds are changing because of global climate conditions. Consumers are changing every day. Consumer demands, sophistication changes constantly. What you require today may not be what your son requires tomorrow. Now, we are one country with one origin of tea. So we are unable to cater to such changing demand sophistication. The only way we can do that is by blending our tea with teas of other origin.
But what would that do to brand Ceylon tea?
Right. Now, as far as brand Ceylon tea is concerned, there is no problem at all. Now, what is happening is we don't have sufficient tea to supplement the global demands. We do not have the sufficient varieties and the blends to suit the customer's needs. As a result of this, as a result of all this, our cost of production is high and we are unable to play in the global market. As you will see, If you look at the market segment globally, market segments in any industry can be categorized into three areas: the top end, the middle one, and the lower level. As far as the top end is concerned, the Ceylon tea, the land logo is there. Premium brand, high priced. No problem at all. No problem at all. But with the Ceylon tea at that high price level, we can't play in the middle and lower levels. We'll be priced out of it.
When we're abroad and when we go into the supermarkets and so on, we can see Ceylon tea out there, and they're quite expensive out there, suggesting to me that we seem to be doing all right. And you know, they associate this Ceylon tea with it is like almost a niche market, because here it is. It's pure Ceylon tea. It's not blended. Doesn't that have value?
Right. You see, that niche market is there. It's good. High price, high quality. But that's a very small band. But the majority of the market, as you will always be, is the middle and the low end.
Right.
And we are not playing there.
But can we play in that market?
We can play in that market. That's the point I'm coming to. Now, 50% of the exports from Ceylon is in the form of value-added tea. That's what we call the Ceylon tea, which is playing in the top end of the market.
Right.
The balance 50% is not playing anywhere. Balance 50% is going as raw material to other countries
for blending.
And they take our tea and blend it with teas of other origin, India, Kenya, wherever it may be. And they send that to fill in the gap in the middle and lower tier. So our tea is made use of by other countries, and they get the benefit of the value addition and the foreign exchange earning.
How much would those teas sell at?
Well, on a rough guess, average, if we sell our tea at 100 rupees, they will be able to sell it at about 2.5 times.
I see.
In the middle and the lower tier. So what I'm saying is, release these controls.
Right.
So instead of exporting our raw material, the bulk tea, to other countries, which are now called the tea hubs.
Right.
Dubai, which doesn't have even a single tea plant, is a tea hub. And we, being the world's 4th largest exporter of the best producer of tea, are nowhere.
We seem to be lying on our laurels here, because we have. People say, oh, the best tea, the best Ceylon tea and all that business. But the fact remains that our production costs in Sri Lanka is amongst the highest in the world. Yeah. And in terms of output, our output is very low, right? So it sounds to me that we're trying to change the pillow for the headache. And instead of doing that, what can be done to increase the production and lower the production cost? Surely we must increase how much of tea is plucked. But to pluck the tea, have we invested in new bushes, in fertilizer? Is there the right fertilizer available? Is there some decision made? I don't know the name of it, but there's some fertilizer which has been, I think, unfairly banned. But that impacts on our... So it's no good telling these tea pluckers, you got to pluck more, when there isn't any more to pluck.
No, what you're talking about, Faraz, is really the after effects of what happened in 1975 when the tea estates were nationalized. And that did not bring in a commercial objective into the companies. As a result, the tea estates were in a poorly managed state.
It's 40 years later.
Yeah, we are still having the effect of that. And then what happened was it was given back to the private sector on a lease. And the lease now has about maybe 10 years to run. And when you are leasing and when you're having a leasehold property, the amount, the incentive you have towards development of the properties, that much less than when you own the property.
So back again, this nationalization thing has had far-reaching negative impacts on this industry.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, coming back to the control that have been imposed on this, as I said, instead of us exporting this 150 million bulk or 50% of production to overseas, keep it here and bring in the others here, and we blend it and we export it and capture. Then,
Mr. Patrick, I get what you're saying, but my suspicious mind also seems to go in this direction, and that is this: that in Sri Lanka, we have no rules and regulations that can be properly implemented without it being corrupted, right? So here we have a situation, everybody will be able to import the 50 cents and $1 teas here, blend it, and in between there'll be some scrupulous rascals, obviously with political patronage, who will then start using, this awful, the low-end market, and then all of a sudden you'll get them saying, pure Ceylon tea. And because they've given a little santosam to some official somewhere. How do we control that?
Well, that is where you got to introduce your checks and balances. Just because you don't want to or unable to introduce checks and balances, don't sacrifice the open economic policy. Policy cannot be sacrificed because you're unable to.
How come when Mr. Jayawardena, who is the in Sri Lankan terms, who was the father of the free economy, in our terms, okay? Then, how come he missed out on the tea industry? How did the tea industry manage to retain all these controls?
No, in fact, if you go back to 1983, from 1983 onwards for about 10 years, imports were liberalized.
Okay.
For about 10 years, we were able to import orthodox tea into the country.
Who put it back?
I think it happened during Chandrika Kumaratunga's time. I think so.
Same family as the people who was responsible for the nationalization.
So, as why it was done, I would know. Maybe one of the reasons I'm told is that there was abuse. But if there's abuse, have your checks and balances. Don't abandon.
But Mr. Patrick, what will happen to this? You say we are stuck in this flat 300 million kilos. 150 you say is this value-added teas. What will happen to that little niche, not little, significant niche market?
That will carry on as it is. All I'm saying is the 150 million kilos which is going out as bulk, keep it back here. That's all I'm saying. The value-added tea has no problem, it's carry on as you are. Instead of sending this out and getting it blended in Dubai or any other country, bring the tea from other countries and blend it here and export it and capture the middle and lower tier markets, which we are unable to capture by using pure Ceylon tea because of the pricing. But when you blend with other teas, the teas of other origin, your cost becomes lower and your prices become more competitive in the middle and lower segments of the market.
And what about companies in Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan tea companies? Do some of them have businesses outside, blending plants outside?
They do, and they take advantage of the blending with teas of other origins.
Of those possibilities outside.
That's right. So what I'm saying is, don't let them go out there, keep them here. And allow.
What would the additional benefit be to the local economy?
But as I said, possibly the value could go up by about 2.5 times, 250%. So, in a nutshell, Faraz, there are two options available to us. Two options. Option one, do nothing.
Right.
Continue as we are and go down the precipice. Our production is declining. We have dropped from 10% to 6% in the world production levels, market share. Our exports have declined from 21% to 17%. Our earnings, tea earnings on GDP has declined. Our production is static, declining. Our quality is declining because of climate changes and also plucking methodology. So as option 1 is stay where you are and have the ill effects of this, right?
One of our viewers says, sent us a message. All what he says is very acceptable, but, and he's got the but in capitals, but those politicians who run the country, or he says pilots who run the country, are both deaf and blind to professional advice. Well, you know, that's what one viewer says is his take on this.
Right. So, that's option 1. Option 2,
Yeah.
liberalize. Allow the imports to come in. What happens when you allow the imports to come in?
But you allow the liberalization to come in, and what the investment or the almost non-level of investment in the tea bushes, for example, will even get worse.
Right. Fine. When you allow the imports to come in,
Yeah.
your valuation goes up.
Yeah.
You have that amount of money to invest in your production processes, right?
But
You
the
need-
lands are on a lease.
Now that again something which the government has to correct. We got to have some sort of a
So we
incentive.
need a, what you're saying, Mr. Patrick, what I'm getting to understand is that what we need is a comprehensive plan for the tea industry.
Definitely.
We can't have bits and pieces.
We need a liberal government policy.
Government must get rid of its shareholding.
Definitely.
They must just hand it over and say, you guys, you know, this is it, you get on with it. Don't think about 25 years or 33 years or whatever it is the lease arrangements are.
So as a result of liberalizing it, which is option 2, you not only increase your supplement declining production levels by importing new tea in, you also bring in new varieties which will cater to the changing or demanding taste buds of the global tea
Palate.
drinker, right? And thirdly, because of the fact you're able to bring down your costs by the blending with the other origins, you're able to compete more effectively in the middle and lower segments of the market, leaving alone the Ceylon tea to play itself out in the top end.
And you don't feel that will be impacted on?
No, not at all.
Tell me this, this show will be incomplete if I don't ask you this question. 150 years and beyond now, what about the lot of the production worker, the tea estate worker? 150 years, all these tamashas going around the country, this, that and the other. Who's doing what for the lot of the estate workers? Why have we forgotten? Why are they forgotten people?
I really don't know whether they are forgotten people, because the estate is heavily unionized and there are political champions who sort of
But these
support their
people
causes.
still living in,
I know,
in
I know.
line homes, by and large.
But yet, as you said earlier, ours is the highest cost of production. But of course, I would think that the highest cost of production terminology is not because of the fact that we are looking after or paying enormous salaries to the...
Which we are not.
But it's because of the low production levels.
Yeah.
You are dividing the whole cost by a smaller number.
Yeah.
That's the reason. Right. As you said, quite. Now, I spoke very much about the export side of it, right?
Yeah.
Now, talking about the production side of it, as you said, we need a certain amount of government participation in developing the tea estates to a level where we can increase production by itself.
You know, this sounds like the perfect recipe to brew a longer and more comprehensive program on this, and perhaps you'll be kind enough to come. We have another program which gives us more time. It's a couple of hours. It's called Face the Nation. We broadcast on Monday nights on TV1, and it's live. Maybe we should get together on there,
I'll be happy to do that.
because this half an hour has just come to a tragic end, because it's finished. That's why I call it tragic. But time flies when you're having a good time. And Angela Patrick, thank you very much for being on Newsline.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
And we have got a new take on this. It's not a new take. It's a good take, but you know, we need to rethink. Resignation is not innocence. Crimes must be punished. Rethink. On that note, that's it from Newsline. Take care and God bless.